Eric Santos is a Regional Educational Technology Coordinator for the Learning Technology Center, serving the greater Chicagoland region. Eric believes in advocating for greater equity and educational opportunities, as well as engaging, inspiring, and empowering all educators through effective EdTech utilization practices. He provides professional development and consultation on educational technology, STEM programs and makerspaces, and emerging technologies. A national board certified educator with 15 years experience in public education, Eric has spent over a decade as a leader in his field, including as both a Google for Education certified trainer and coach. He has presented nationally at the ISTE and FETC conferences, as well as locally at IdeaCon, RSAC, and more. He also holds a pair of master's degrees from Dominican University and from National Louis University. He is an adjunct professor at both colleges. Welcome to the webinar, Eric. We're glad you're here.
All righty. Thank you for that introduction, Matt. I appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. I just dropped a link in the chat. And Matt, I'm going to apologize. I told you I didn't need any links, and then I went and found myself a link that I needed. So if you wanted to add that one somehow for people to click, please feel free. Just a quick one-question survey just to see what everyone's experience level is in the room. So thank you all for doing that. This is the Prompt Playbook, How to Create Effective AI Prompts. So if you're new to AI, this is going to be helpful to you. But if you're experienced and you're thinking, hey, I've done AI prompts before, I just type a question in, what's the big deal? I think this is still going to be useful to you, and you're still going to find that there are some tips and tricks that are helpful. I was going to do a quick introduction, but man, Matt did such a great job with that I think he's pretty much nailed everything. But all my contact information and some of the things that he mentioned there are there about me. Again, my name is Eric Santos, and it's great to have you all here. If anything you like today is something you'd like to bring to your school, in addition to AI, there's a variety of other topics that I'm happy to come out to your school in the Chicagoland area and help you out with. So without further ado, one last thing that I did want to make sure you're aware of related to AI. DuPage ROE is partnering with us to host an AI conference on June 11th, completely free. It's a full day conference, and it's out at Indian Trail Junior High in Addison. So we'd love to see you there for a full day of AI related learning. And that QR code and that link will take you to the registration page to join us for that. So thank you, everyone, for checking that out. All right, with that said, let's get started. A quick overview of what to expect today. I'm going to do an AI model overview, so kind of sharing with you the bigger, more popular AI, generative AI models. And I'm going to go over my recommendations for how to best prompt those models to get the best results out of them. And I use the 4 C's, context, clarify, chunk, and calibrate. And as I'm showing you those, I'm definitely going to go off on tangents and teach you a little bit more about how each of those models work and what I like to use them for. Please do drop your comments or your questions along the way as I do these demonstrations. And again, I am not the sole expert in the room. I am sure there are several of you who have become really good at using some aspect of AI. So if you've got an idea for how something could be done better or an example, drop that in the chat as well. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do is just kind of do an overview of some of the tools. So the first 3 there are 3 large language models, and that's LLM for short. That's just kind of a fancy way of saying an AI tool that's kind of built as a generative AI bot that does thinking for you and does some and gives you some responses to your prompts. So the first is pretty well known, ChatGPT. One thing to know, and I'll share a couple of comparisons about those tools that I'm going to demonstrate today. ChatGPT's free version that most of us are using if we're not paying for it, the free version has been trained on data up until January of 2022. That might be actually more recent at this point. They tend to bump up the training date every few months or so, but you're definitely not getting the most recent information if you're using the free version of ChatGPT. So just know if you're ever prompting it for something that requires information of something that happened recently, like it involves the most recent Super Bowl winner or the most recent NCAA basketball championship winners, you might not get that correctly out of ChatGPT. A cool feature is that you can respond to selected text, which I'll demonstrate. And it has a really awesome voice conversation feature if you use the ChatGPT mobile apps. You can actually turn on the conversation mode and just talk to it freely back and forth without having, kind of hands-free. So if you're driving or you just want to be able to have a conversation naturally, it'll do that. And it's open to anybody who wants to sign up for an account. Now, Gemini is the next one we'll use today, and that is a Google product. It used to be called Google Bard. They changed their name to Google Gemini. That one will give you in the free version real-time information. So that's a difference from ChatGPT. So because it's Google, it's doing a live search as well. And so you'll get the most up-to-date information. It also will provide you with links and images depending on how you prompt it. It does have integration with other Google tools, so it can kick things out to spreadsheets or integrate Google Maps. You can even upload images for reference. So we'll show you how to do that in just a minute as well. It does have a speech-to-text option, so you can click the little microphone and talk to it and input your information, and it'll spit back out text. And it does require a Google account, so that's one tricky thing. So if you go to use this at your school district, if you're a Google school, one thing you'll need to know is your Google admin will have to turn that on in the Google admin console. Otherwise, you might get a message saying you don't have access to it. But you can use your personal account, your personal Gmail if you have one, and you do have to sign up with a Google account. And that's a difference from ChatGPT, where you have the option to just sign up with a username and password if you want. A third, slightly lesser known large language model is Claude. And Claude is at this website right here, claude.ai, and that's trained on slightly more updated data than ChatGPT, but not real time. So it's trained up until August of 2023 at this point. You do have the opportunity to upload documents with Claude, and it is open for anyone to sign up for an account with. You can use your Google account to sign up, or you can just sign up with a username or password. The last one there is Microsoft Copilot, and that one is not a large language model of its own. It actually builds on other and uses other, I should say, large language models for its information. They don't clarify which ones they use. They say they use a combination. But that's Microsoft product. You can use the text generating tool for free. However, it does seem to indicate that if you sign up using a Microsoft account, you get longer conversations and more detailed answers. It has a few other features, which I'll demonstrate in just a few minutes. One cool thing is that it provides its references to the things that it does provide its references to the things that it's saying, and it tells you where it's getting its information to produce the text. And it has a few other cool features like a vacation planner and a mobile app that you can use as well. Now, it does have an image generating tool, but you would need a Microsoft account for that. All right, so those are our 4 text generating tools that we'll talk about and some quick comparisons. There's also a couple of image generating tools we'll demonstrate as well. There's a lot out there. I'm currently going to demonstrate a couple that I know are free. One is Adobe Firefly. You do need to sign up, but you don't need to have a paid account. You'll just have access to less images per month. I think you can only do 25 per month in a free account, whereas if you have a paid Adobe subscription, you could do something like 500. Ideogram is another site for making AI generated images, and you'll see that that one is pretty good at doing text in your images as well. I asked it to make a cartoonish AI chatbot painting a masterpiece on canvas. We can see the painting. The bot has its head turned looking at us, and it gave me this, which I think was an attempt at a Bob Ross likeness. I call it Bot Ross. Thank you. All right, so with that said, let's talk about the 4 C's. Okay, and so I'm going to do this by I'm going to kind of show the prompt generation tips by walking you through each of the 4 C's with an example. So let's say we were going to prompt an AI LLM, a large language model, with a simple prompt like write a children's story about the environment. So let's give that a try. I'm actually going to pop right into ChatGPT right now, and I'll just tell it exactly that. And by the way, I've got my prompts all pre-written out in a different screen. I didn't want to sit here and try and type live in front of an audience, because that wouldn't go well. All right, so I told it to write a children's story about the environment, and if you kind of skim through, it did exactly that. However, I, in my head, had a lot of ideas about what I wanted this to sound and look like, and this wasn't it at all. But it's only going to work as well as the prompt that I give it. So let's give it a little more context. When I say context, the easiest way I could think of is to use the RAFT acronym. And if any of you have ever taught writing, I don't know if everyone still uses RAFT or if it's used everywhere, but I've seen this RAFT acronym before be really successful with students. And I think it's really helpful for prompt generation too. It stands for role, audience, format, and topic. So role means tell the chatbot who they're supposed to be. Give them a persona to take on. Audience means who are they writing this to or for? So give them an idea of who they're writing it for. So role might be I'm a middle school teacher, or you're Edgar Allan Poe, or you're a young Padawan. Where audience might be you're speaking to a room of parents and guardians, or you're writing a letter to Lenore, or you're addressing a master Jedi. Giving it that audience is going to automatically change the way that it phrases things and the word choices that it uses. Furthermore, we can use the F format. So we can tell it exactly what it's supposed to be outputting. So in this case, I told it a story. It didn't know that I wanted a rhyming story, actually. So format might be things like outline a presentation for me, or write a poem for me, or draft a speech, or write a letter. And then finally, topic. That one's pretty simple because that's just what is this going to be about? And we tend to just naturally tell it what it's going to be about the environment. So that was easy enough. So let me take that same prompt and let me supercharge it just a bit to show you how I would use Raft to make it more useful. So in this case, and I've kind of color coded each of those 4 parts of Raft in order for you to see it in my updated prompt. So I'm going to say, you are Dr. Seuss. Write a story for 7-year-olds. So you are Dr. Seuss. There's my role, right? Already it's going to have an entire set of training on what that means and what that should sound like. Write a story for 7-year-olds. So now it's got an audience and it knows exactly at what writing level to be creating this text. Make it between 1,000 and 1,500 words and make it rhyme. Okay, that's my format. So I know that it's now got to be a fairly short story, and then it's got to be a rhyming scheme. And because it knows I'm Dr. Seuss, it's probably going to attempt for something Dr. Seuss sounding. The topic is the environment. That's the same. That was easy, right? And then some more format. Make it involve a dilemma that they have to solve by reducing and reusing items in there. And I think I had a copy paste error there, but it says items in their lives and give the characters silly names. Okay, so we're going to take that. There we go. For some reason, it wanted to write the rest out separately. All right, we're going to take that and we're going to reprompt. I'm actually going to delete that one totally. I'm not going to write it in the same one. And part of that is I don't want it to continue thinking we're building on this story. If I continue in this same thread, sometimes it'll try to continue with what it originally started with and just kind of mold it according to that. And it has a hard time, I've found, reframing what it's doing in a different way. So in this case, I want to start totally fresh. And I'm going to give it that same prompt, which I copy pasted, with a lot more detail using that Raft format. Okay, I hit enter, and right away as we start listening to it write, we can see that it's got characters with silly names. We can kind of see that there's rhyming going on. It does kind of sound like a Dr. Seuss style writing. So I'll just give you a minute to kind of browse over that. All right, so there we go. Already we've gotten something a little bit better tailored to what I was looking for. Now, I might not feel like this is totally finished and ready to go, but I've gotten it a lot closer to what I was looking for exactly. Um, excuse me. So let's build on that a little bit. There's a little bit more that we can do within ChatGPT, and actually several of the tools do this. It allows me to continue refining it, but ChatGPT is going to let me select text and actually quote that text and address that text directly and do something different. One reason I might do that, um, I might not be happy with the results. And I'll show you an example. I did this once before as I was preparing for this, and I'll scroll to the top and kind of show you what it gave me. It started with this story called The Green Machine Saves the Day. And it said, once upon a time in a town not far lived a group of friends, each with a star. And it continued on. And number one, that didn't quite make sense. Like, why does each friend have a star? And then I realized it's Dr. Seuss. It's probably referencing Sneetches. If any of you are familiar with that story, the stars on their bellies are a huge part of the story. I don't necessarily want that in my writing. So something to be on the lookout for is when you prompt it to use a known text or a known figure or a known event, there's a chance that it's going to use a flavor of that, or there's a chance that it's going to directly copy something and it may or may not make sense. So in my case, I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight that part, and there's a little quote button that pops up. I'm going to hit reply. And what it does is it pops down to the bottom where I can continue prompting it. I think I lost it. Let me try that again. Sorry. I'm going to select that paragraph again. I'm going to quote, and you can see it quotes that part I just selected, and it asks me to message ChatGPT, and I'm going to say, rewrite that without the part about the stars. When I hit enter, it got confused because I had done several other different things since then. Okay, so it got things a little bit confused, but you can get the idea that it's going to rewrite that without that star part. So you can select any text. Obviously, this is an example of when I said that if I do too many things in the same thread, it starts to mix them up and want to keep referencing that thread. But I could select any one of these parts early on and make a change. Let me try it again with the one that I just demonstrated for you guys brand new. So let's say that I selected this part and I quote it and I say, rewrite this line, but change the name Whimsy Wood to Woolly Waldo. And so it's going to rewrite just that part for me instead of generating an entire new thing. So you can quote it and you can tell it to change something. You can quote the text and tell it to rewrite that in a different format. But you've got the ability just to reference a specific part. Okay, so with that said, we can take that even farther. So let's say that we wanted to now change this up a bit and not just have it be a story, but let's generate a story that has some images along with it. So if I wanted to generate a brand new story and have images, I could sit here and read through it and on my own try to process exactly what I want in each picture, or I could let AI do some of the heavy lifting for me. So a couple of things I could do is I could take just that part and I can have it write a prompt for an AI image generator to produce that scene. Let me show you what that might look like. And actually, let me show you two different approaches of this, if I could back up for just a second. So I'm going to jump to a different tool. I'm going to jump into Adobe Firefly. And Adobe Firefly is a tool that lets me generate an image just from a prompt that I give it. So you can see the example they gave me up here, a fantasy of a giraffe walking with a party hat on, paper flowers, etc. So you hit enter and it gives you something like this. Well, what if I took what it just gave me, and what if I took that and just put it into an image generator? So in my story, where I had this green machine saving the day, what if I took just this beginning, copied it, and put it into the AI generator for images, and had it just make an image based on exactly what's in there? Let's give it a try and see what I get. Now, if you've never seen Adobe Firefly, you're going to be pretty impressed here. It's going to generate 4 images based on what I put into the prompt, and it's going to give me the choice of what I'd like to do with those 4 images. So there you go. It created a group of friends in a town not far away under the shining sun. Now, it got a little thrown off by that whole star part. That's why I wasn't a big fan of it. And it didn't quite know where to put all these stars in each of these example images. But there you go. So I could just take part of my story, or I could prompt it myself and have it generate something for me that's a picture. Now, I'm going to go on a tangent for just a bit and talk about Adobe Firefly. One of the reasons I really like this tool for generating images is you have the ability to change some of the inputs. And this is actually not so much a tangent because this does go along with prompt generation skills. It just makes it really easy by kind of producing an automated set of buttons I can just click. So if I don't want this to be an art style, I can make this a photo by clicking photo right here. Notice that it added photo down here to where I have my prompt. I can also scroll down, and I'm going to scroll a bit and skip these parts and come back to them. I'm going to scroll down here and choose an effect. So I can choose from a variety of different artistic effects and have it apply it to my picture. So let's say that I wanted a surreal photo, and I can add a theme to it as well. Let's do comic book. Notice how each time I click each one of those, it adds it down here as part of my prompt. Now, it will do this automatically because that's what the tool is built to do. But you know what I learned from this? This actually taught me how I can use certain language to manually add these things to my prompt. So instead of clicking on these things, if I wanted to actually just add the words, create a photo, or create a photo in the surrealistic style, or in comic book style, or anime style, make it look like acrylic paint or oil painting, I could add those words manually to my prompt and it'll know the same process of adding them to the actual generated image. So if you're not using Firefly, if you're using some other tool that doesn't give you all these built-in options, just know that you can add any one of these words. And if it's a well-known style or it's a known look, it will add it to the look of your image results. So as you can see, it changed things up to make it surreal and comic book, which is kind of a weird combination for me to have chosen, but there we have it. That was its best attempt. And it looks like it was painted with acrylic paint. So that's just a fun way to be able to not only adjust your images, but also get ideas on how you might manually prompt another AI generator to get some of that look. Okay, so I'm going to actually shift gears now and show you a different way that is specific to Adobe Firefly. And that is, I'm going to also kind of steal some of my own thunder from later when I talk about giving references for it to use. Adobe Firefly allows you to use a reference image to determine either the structure or the style of the look of the image it's going to give you. So let's do this. Let's actually choose one of their built-in. So they have this one that's pretty colorful. And when you chose that one as the reference style, you could generate an image that's going to kind of match what that style is. It will still attempt to create the thing that was in your prompt, but it'll do it using that style as a guide. And there we go. It's got kind of an electronic minimalist feel with some neon lights. And all I had to do was feed it an image to reference. I could even give it my own image. So I'm going to click upload and I'm going to pick, here's a good winter lake image that I'll use. And it's going to double check that I'm not using some copywritten image. You guys can see what the original image was there. If I zoom in, you'll see this was just a drone photo that I took of a lake during the winter. Oops, and I clicked off of it. And so it's going to actually use that image now that I own as a reference for the style. So when I generate it all over again, I might see kind of a wintry wonderland with some muted colors. Let's wait and see. And there we go. So without even telling it that I wanted winter or snow, I just gave it an image to refer to, and it did that for me. I point that out because sometimes people go to these image generators, especially Firefly, and they think, oh, if I just upload my own picture, it will AI-ify my picture. So it might take my photo and I can do AI-related manipulation to that photo. From within Firefly, that's not something it specifically does. It just uses it as a reference. I could also do a structure reference. So if I click upload image and I give it this sunrise image that I took of the city of Chicago, now this is structure, so it's going to do more of a landscape picture with a wintry style to it. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how it combines those things using my prompt. Let's see what we get. And there we go. So now we've got this landscape image that does have kind of a sunrise going on, but it's got that reference as its structure of the picture, of how everything's framed in the picture, but it's got this style, this wintry muted colors, kind of a turquoise background with black and white land. So I can play around with a couple of different images that I have, as well as the language that I'm using to give it an opportunity to make exactly what I'm looking for. But wait, there's more. Let's say I wanted to go a little bit farther into this. So I could actually use AI to talk to AI. So let's go back into ChatGPT. I've highlighted that section. And this time, instead of just copy and pasting that section in, I'm going to quote it and I'm going to ask it to create. Let's actually see. Maybe I could just copy and paste this. I don't think I had this ready. Nope. So I'll just type it out for you guys. Create a prompt. I'm going to spell it wrong. It'll still get it right. For an AI image generator using this part of the story. So why did I ask it to do that? It's going to generate a much more detailed version of that part that I quoted. So instead of those four short lines, it's now got this long prompt that I not only would I never take the time to do, I would never know exactly what to say to give it what I'm looking for. So I'm going to copy all of that now, the AI generated prompt, and I'm going to go back into Firefly. I'm going to start brand new, fresh, and I'm going to say, here you go. It's even got the instructions to generate an image, and it's got everything in detail. Let's hit generate and see this time without any other background. What happens when I give AI an AI generated set of instructions? All right, so as you can see, I got something significantly different, and I could change that over to art instead of photo and generate that again, but it was very detailed and had exactly what was being asked for by the AI. So you can tinker around with this and see if you genuinely get better results or not. I think there's times where it would be helpful. I think there might be other times where it doesn't give you significantly different results, but I think that has quite a bit of detail. When I tried this with our original Dr. Seuss-ish story, here's what I ended up with. On the left was just the image that was generated with just the four lines from the poem. And then when I had AI generate an image prompt using those lines and it gave me this long detail, it gave me this on the right. So is it terribly different? No, but I do feel like there's a lot better quality and a lot more detail in the one on the right. I also now want to write a story about why this child has a pig star over his head while they're right there that we can get into. Really fun stuff. Okay, so now that we've dove into image generation and had AI text generators create prompts for an AI image generator, um, let's also just see that sometimes you also get a style difference. So in this one, I took a different paragraph and I told it to generate a prompt for an AI generator. And I had the original paragraph's picture on the left and the AI generated one on the right. And both of them, all I added to it was that I wanted it in an anime style. And to my surprise, the one on the left was a little more cartoony, maybe a little more childish, and had significantly less detail, I think, in what I would want out of a green machine that's cleaning the environment. This one kind of had the weird extra arm right there. Whereas this one, is that a real machine? No, but it looks a little more machine-like and like something that probably would come out of a Dr. Seuss book, even if it does have an anime art style. So I think letting the AI do the extra work of taking your prompt and improving it is totally something that might be worth giving a shot. I'll give you a site that might help do that for you. So if you don't want to go through the struggle of doing that first in ChatGPT and then copy pasting that over into something like Firefly, you might try a site like Ideogram. So Ideogram helped me produce this image right here. I asked it to create, and by the way, the LTC's mascot is a hedgehog, which is why I chose hedgehog. I asked it to create a hedgehog astronaut hero flying through space with the word LTC on its helmet, which I love. One thing I like about Ideogram, side note, it does a great job with words. It got the LTC exactly right. If you've ever tried an image generating tool, you might find that if you tell it to put a word in the picture itself, it jumbles up all the words and the letters. Ideogram does a great job of keeping those letters together, whereas others might not. One thing, though, that I noticed about it is you have this thing called Magic Prompt. If you turn Magic Prompt on and then generate your image, it won't necessarily show you that it's doing this, but behind the scenes, it's taking your prompt and it's improving it the exact same way I just did by using ChatGPT to improve my prompt. So it'll actually rewrite that prompt for you and then generate the image. I'll give it a second to form. So I got a lot more detail and a lot more variation in the way those four images looked this time. And there is a place where I can take a look and see how it did that. There we go. And I don't see where that is now. I'm drawing a blank, but it will show me that it was able to take that prompt and it'll give me a much more detailed prompt than what I originally wrote. And as soon as I remember exactly where that is, I'll jump back in. But this is another tool you can use. It does require sign up, but it is free as of right now, and it will help you improve your prompts. And it'll help you actually, if you want to put letters into your prompt, it'll make the words and letters way better. Okay, so with that said, I didn't mean to go down a whole image generation tangent, but I thought that was a good way to demonstrate how prompts can impact the end result. Okay, so all of that, believe it or not, was just the first C, which was context, giving a lot more context to the image that you're generating. The second C is going to be clarify. Excuse me. And clarify, I found a good acronym, GPT, to summarize the three components of clarify. Clarify, the G means guidance. So giving it a guide or a reference of what exactly you're looking for will help you get better prompts. So as an example, you saw that I added those photos to Adobe Firefly to give it a style or a structure reference. That's what we're talking about here, like giving it something that it can refer to. Telling it to make it in the style of the Dr. Seuss book is a very similar type of strategy. Purpose, P, means give it a goal for your response. So what are you trying to accomplish? That will actually help it frame and write out the response a whole lot better. And finally, tone. When you're using when using AI to create a piece of writing, telling it the tone to write in totally changes the word choice and the style of the writing. It's kind of similar to with the image generation, how we had it use different paint styles or a different reference to what the overall feel of the image should look like. You can do the exact same thing with the writing as well. All right, so let's take a look at what that might look like in an example. So in this case, I'm going to switch gears. Now we're going to be writing a recommendation letter, okay? And the recommendation letter is going to, oops, lost my image. Give me 1 second. Let me pull that back up. And I noticed that some of my words are getting cut off. So I'm actually going to pull it back up in a different format so we can see everything. There we go. So we're going to write a recommendation letter for a teacher who wants to be a tech coach. Hey, that was a position I was in many years ago. I was a teacher who wanted to be a tech coach. So let's say that you're a principal and you get asked to write a recommendation letter. This is a great task to hand off to AI to help you out with this. If I tell it to do this task, will it do it? Absolutely, it'll do it. Let's take a look. Let's have Gemini actually do that for us. Write a recommendation for a teacher who wants to be a tech coach. All right, so here we go. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter, etc., etc., and it's got a nice template for me. Now that might be good enough, but it also might be not too different than just grabbing a template from some website and finding a way to just edit it on my own. And I might have to do a lot of manual changes. However, with a little prompt magic, I can actually make this better. So let me show you how I would write this a different way. Guidance, purpose, and tone. So I'm going to say I'm a middle school principal. I'm a science teacher, Eric Santos, is applying to be an instructional coach at a high school. I've known him for 5 years. Write a 3-paragraph recommendation letter that emphasizes this teacher's gift for planning engaging curricula, knowledge of multiple teaching frameworks, and rapport with colleagues. Be persuasive and convincing of his skill. Use a professional, warm tone. Speak in plain language without flowery, effusive language. Okay, those of you who have used AI enough probably understand why I'm putting some of those modifiers in. But let's take a look at what that's going to look like using this framework of guidance, purpose, and tone. So I added some guidance in the sense of this is a science teacher. Here's his name. So you can actually include that right there in the letter for me. I've known him for 5 years, so that's a little more guidance. Emphasizing what to emphasize for this teacher is important. So planning, engaging curricula, etc. All of that is guidance that now they can specifically reference in this writing. Some more of the purpose, be persuasive and convincing of his skill. So we have a reason here. We're not just talking about him in general. We're trying to convince you that he would be good in this brand new role that he's not worked before. And then finally, tone, be professional but warm. Keep it kind of brief because ChatGPT will sometimes use all kinds of extra adjectives and flowery language. Use plain language. So if we use that, if I copy that and I paste that right in, let's give Gemini a try here. And I'm going to put all that in. I get a slightly different response. It included my name because I gave reference to my name. It included that it's going to be at the high school, so that saved me some time of specifying that part. It told me the whole part about working with him for the past 5 years. And then it references all the things that I asked it to reference. So everything about project-based learning and differentiated instruction, etc. It all makes it in there. It's persuasive, and it's fairly brief compared to the last one. So it's only three paragraphs followed by the please contact me part. So I was able to tailor that a little bit more to specifically what I'm looking for out of this letter. Okay. I can do that, or I can lean really heavily into the guidance part. I can actually use some tools that will allow me to upload or copy, instead of just copy and pasting a resume in, I can actually upload the document straight in. So I could have copy and pasted this entire Eric guy's resume right into here and then said, reference this resume when writing the letter. Let me just try a whole different tool. I'm going to try Claude. So if you're not familiar with Claude, this is Claude, made by a company called Anthropic. And you'll notice that Claude looks just like a lot of other tools, AI tools, where there's a little place to prompt, but they also have this little clip button, and that's where I can upload something. So I'm going to click it, and I'm going to go upload this resume that I just conveniently had ready in this folder. And I'm going to have it reference that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to write a reference letter for someone applying for a position as an EdTech coordinator. Use this resume as a reference for his skills, ability, and experience. I'll even say his name is Eric. I hit enter. It analyzes that PDF and it starts writing it. Notice that I prompted it with a whole lot less. I didn't get into quite as much detail as I did right here. I didn't use all the purpose and tone and all of that, but I did give it a reference document to use. Okay. And so what it did is it went to that document and it was able to identify exactly where I worked before. It was able to identify things I wrote in my resume, like using ISTE standards, technology transitions, moving to Chromebooks. All of this is in my resume from that time. It mentioned 3D printing and esports and all this different experience that I have in there. And it was able to write a very specific professional recommendation matched to my resume. So it saved me a lot of the cognitive work that would be involved with asking the tool to do something extremely specific, referring to someone's experience. Now, can I still copy paste this and edit it to my liking? Of course I can, but I'm starting with a much more finished document, which is going to make my work a whole lot easier. All right. I'll also point out that it's not just professional stuff. It could be fun stuff as well. So for example, if I start a brand new Claude conversation, it does take and not just document, but also images. So I could feed it an image. Google Gemini does this as well. So I'll actually give it an image about this photograph of Springfield, Illinois. And let me see if I can show you guys what that picture actually looks like so you know what it's referencing. Here we go. So this is the picture that I'm gonna upload, and I'm gonna say, write a haiku about this image. Let's see what it does. I don't know if it grabbed the image. Let's try that again. Oh, I can't upload files that are that large. Okay, let's pick a smaller one. Let's go to the Chicago night photo. Here's what it looks like. Chicago at night. And let's see if it'll write a haiku for me about that image. Sure enough, shimmering city lights, nighttime skyline aglow with celestial wonder. Amazing. So it can go both ways. You can give a prompt to get an image, and some of these tools will allow you to get an image and give it a prompt. I'm sorry, get a text response out of it from the image. I'm curious if it'll know what city that is. We won't test that live. We won't put it to the test, but I'm curious. All right. Now that we've gotten through the first two T's, so we had context and we had clarify. The next one is going to be chunk. So in this case, we're talking about chunking, just like you would in your classroom, chunking content into smaller pieces. We're going to break large tasks down into smaller tasks. So what does that mean? So it might mean that you start with an outline of an idea or an overview or just brainstorm ideas before you ask it to produce the bigger work that you're asking for. You would then reprompt over and over to build out each section of the big thing you're creating. You can also ask for examples or analogies as you go. So let's look at an example of what that might look like. So if you wanted to chunk your AI lesson planning, for example, so let's say you're building a lesson. In this case, I'm going to take a real scenario that happened to me. I was given a brand new curriculum in a new place and told, hey, you're going to be teaching the rock cycle to seventh graders. I had never heard of the rock cycle. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't even know rocks had a cycle. I had heard of the water cycle, but not the rock cycle. But I had to teach this, and I didn't have really any lesson materials other than a textbook to teach it with. So I could have said, all right, write me a unit on rock cycle, but that's such a huge thing. I don't know if I would have gotten enough out of it, out of the responses that AI tools tend to give you. I don't know if I would have known how to then go in and teach any of that. I needed a lot of background and a lot of hand holding to build this out. So I'll give you an example of how I might do this. I would probably start with some brainstorming and outlining. I would then dig into like goals and objectives and some of the questions and assessments, maybe even build some rubrics. And then I'd go a step deeper into like, okay, what are the specific activities we're doing? What are some small group pullouts we can do? How can I simplify explanations? What are the misconceptions involved? So we start big and we chunk our way down to smaller and smaller details. So for that, let's jump back into ChatGPT and I'll give it this prompt. Again, I'm going to start high level. I'm a science teacher, giving it my role, teaching the rock cycle to my seventh grade students. Audience, I'm new to the topic. A little more context and clarification there. What are the big ideas I should learn about? So I'm going to start there and just, again, kind of brainstorming and getting an idea of what I need to know. So now it's better than doing a Google search where I have to sift through dozens of sites and ads and pop-ups and teacher pay teacher links, etc. And I can just give me an overview of what I'm supposed to know. Great. Okay. The rock cycle is there. Weathering and erosion is there. Deposition. Okay. I don't know a lot about weathering and erosion. So I might take that and I might quote that and say, what would a unit on this look like? Give me an outline. Okay. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to give me an outline of 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. It's still pretty high level. But at this point, I don't know the difference between weathering, mechanical weathering, chemical weathering. And I'm going to ask it, can you explain the types of weathering to me like I'm 5 years old? This is my favorite new way to get information on things I don't quite understand. It's telling me things like, this is like when you take a big cookie and break it into smaller pieces by hitting it with something hard. I get that. How did it know to relate things to cookies for me? I don't know, but I'll take it. And so it goes into these nice age-appropriate, for my understanding level, explanations and examples of what that might look like. Okay, what would be a great hands-on lesson for this concept appropriate for 12-year-olds? Okay, so let's bump the knowledge level up a bit to 12-year-olds. And it's going to do its thing, and it's going to give me this weathering and in action hands-on simulation. So I can continue on chunking it from there. Little by little, could I be copy and pasting some of this stuff together into a bigger plan as I go? Absolutely. And as it goes through all of this, I could be looking at this, reading through the stations, and then asking how would I assess students at each station? And I can now build out each part of that lesson from there. And so I've chunked it into smaller and smaller pieces. Whereas if I asked it, when I asked it for the unit plan, it didn't give me all of this. That's too much for it to spit back all at once. My prompt was too general. But as I start to chunk and get pieces of things and take smaller and smaller bites of this, I get a lot of really good help with all of this. I could look for accommodations. How can I accommodate a student with a broken arm? So my student broke his arm skateboarding over the weekend. We had this hands-on activity. How do I accommodate them in the moment? I've just got to find answers. I'm able to do that. So these are just some examples of how I can use the way that prompting works best to get the best results out of my situation. So chunking it into smaller pieces. You can also, for the fourth C, calibrate. And so calibrate simply is kind of overlaps with what I just did, and that is asking it for more. So asking it to give more detail, give a few more of something, a few less, write a certain number of words. I could change some parts of what it just did. So I think I demonstrated that a few times of eliminating something, telling it to rewrite something a different way. You could tell it to specifically eliminate just this part and rewrite it without that part, like when I asked it to rewrite the story without the stars. Um, you could also tell it to rewrite with a different focus, or this time do more of this or less of that. I'll show you a great example of that. So we can actually jump into Copilot. So I haven't shown that yet. Copilot, again, is Microsoft's tool. The Copilot text generator tool is free. The designer tool that does images, you do have to, it's free as well, but you have to have a Microsoft account. But Copilot is free, and you can use that without any Microsoft account. All right, with that said, let's give this a try. In this case, I'm going to try to use it to plan a trip. So I've got this pre-written out. I'm going to plan a trip somewhere I've never been and I have no idea how to plan a trip for. We're going to go to Japan. I wrote, I'm an adult traveling to Japan with a 15 and 10-year-old. So these are my kids. Give me an overview of the best cities to visit and things to do. So kind of two concepts at once. We're going to chunk this because I don't even know where to start. And secondly, I'm going to continuously prompt this and refine my questioning to get exactly what I'm looking for, because it doesn't know what I'm looking for yet and what our desires are. It just knows I got a 15 and 10-year-old. All right, so it's going to give me an overview. Pretty simple. It searches the web, or it searches its training, and it's got the most popular tourist sites. I've never been, so I don't know if these are the best choices or not. I also, though, don't know where any of these places are. So I don't know if it's reasonable to go to all these places all at one time. I don't know what order to do them in. I do like that it gives me some pictures and some links to where it got its info. So this is where I refine. So I'm going to say, we like adventure and fun. We only have, let's say, 8 days. What cities are best? So I'm going to refine and have it kind of redo that and have it strip it down to just the cities I should be able to do in 8 days. So it tells me Tokyo, Kyoto, and Hiroshima. Okay, so I'm actually going to continue refining, and I'm kind of curious. The Japanese Alps sounds really cool. Why did you take that out? That sounds adventurous. Why did you remove Okuhita? I hope I said that right. It says it's beautiful, and it added it back in. Okay, great. Fantastic. So now it thinks that we can get this done. In the past, I've tried this and I asked it why it removed Okinawa once before, and it said, well, you only had 8 days, so Okinawa is an entire 2-hour flight away. I felt that would be the best to remove that. So you can continue prompting it. I can also tell it, I want to see Super Nintendo Land, and but not Disney World. Sorry, Disney fans, I'm not going to across the world and still going to Disney World in another country. Okay, I want to see Super Nintendo Land, but not Disney World. Super Nintendo Land is a real place, by the way. Modify the itinerary and add places to stay and eat that are kid friendly. I'm ignoring all my typos because it knows what I'm talking about. It'll correct that. And so now I've asked it to add some things and give me a little more detail. And so now I'm starting to work my way more towards something that works for me. So it's going to tell me specifically where we're going, specifically where we're going to eat, specifically what we should eat. It's included things that I said I want, and it's focused things more on an adventurous approach to this trip. All right. So if you're looking for a trip to Japan, I already planned that out for you. Just email me and I got you. I'll send this your way. All righty. So that was a lot of information, but still quite, I think, a brief overview on how to get better at using these tools. Again, my 4 C's that I just went over with you guys are context, clarify, chunk, and calibrate. So with each one of those, there are some tips that I gave you. So raft is one of the easiest ones, I think, for just quickly improving things. So if you get nothing else out of this, raft is a great way to improve your prompts. Using guidance, purpose, and tone. So if you get nothing else out of this, I'd say knowing that you can upload references or give it something or someone to reference is a quick way to improve your prompts. We talked about using AI to talk to AI. I love the simple idea of chunking your content and then not being afraid to continue calibrating and asking it to improve things or change things as you go. Have a conversation with it the same way you would an intern or an assistant or a travel agent, and watch it do magic for you. So, with that said, thank you all for joining me and for tolerating some of the ins and outs that sometimes happen with AI tools when they don't behave exactly the way you expect live in front of an audience. So, thank you all for understanding as I pivoted here and there. If you're looking for more information on how to get better at writing prompts, here's a few resources you can click on when you get these slides. There's a great AI prompt step-by-step tool that was created by coaches at East Main District 63. You can click on that and check out their link. This prompt library is at aiforeducation.io. It's a really great library for teachers that breaks down prompting into different teacher-focused tasks like lesson planning and PD and SEL. And when you click in, it doesn't just give you prompts, it tells you, kind of like I just did, how to get better at writing those prompts and gives you examples on how to do that. And finally, there's this prep edit framework that's floating around on the internet that you might like. I'll just close by saying this is really interesting to me. I had heard people say that being kind to your AI bots gets you better results, like using please and thank you. But I actually found a peer-reviewed study that somebody did showing that large language models do better and can be enhanced with emotional language. So saying please, thank you, this is really important, please do your best, I'm counting on you, tends to give different results. Apparently there's people getting their PhD proving this to be true. So I can't, I haven't read the whole thing, I can't tell you for sure, but I think it's interesting that that's out there. With that said, if you'd like these slides, they are at bit.ly/LTC prompts AI. So you can go to that link. It's also up on the screen right now, and you can get access to those slides. I thank you all for joining me, and I'm going to pass the mic back to Matt. Thanks, everyone.
Eric, thank you once again very much for spending some time with us today. We appreciate you.
Happy to do it, Matt. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.